Like, seriously. Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews, Proust Reflections. I'm Tina, and today I'm talking about Book 3, Part 2. So this is page 103 to 102 in my version. We're in lockdown again where I live. What does that mean for me? Absolutely nothing. Building a warehouse is apparently essential, so my husband is working on site and my toddler is still in daycare. I don't understand what this lockdown is supposed to be. My provincial government is run by crooks. But at least I'm not having a panic attack in a hotel, right? Right? Because that's where we are right now. First, Marcel talks about sleep and how he actually likes the hotel that Saint Loup put him up in Doncier. But then he has a panic attack and calls Robert over. After this, he talks about how much he likes the town and where the garrison is located. It can also be because Robert tries like his hardest to integrate Marcel into his group of friends. So that might also be why he likes the town a bit. We also learned that Madame de Guermantes' name is Oriane. I like that name. It's classy. It's a good name. So Marcel spends a lot of time trying to trick Robert into inviting him to dine with the Guermantes, because that's his whole mission when he goes to Doncier, is to do this, not to hang out with his buddy. He ends up getting Robert to say he'll bring him the next time he goes. Then Robert gives us a lowdown on military strategy. Robert, I have played a lot, and I mean a lot, of Warcraft and Warcraft 3 and StarCraft in my day. I don't need all of this nonsense. What's interesting to me about this section is how it's still based on the old way of fighting. Like, if picture like the Civil War kind of, I mean, there's way more Civil War movies than there are movies about Napoleon's battles, but they're all kind of fought the same way. You line dudes up and then they shoot each other, or they shoot each other with cannons or whatever. They charge in with their cavalry, charge with the light brigade. Anyway, and he talks about how, a battlefield has never been and never will be throughout the centuries, simply the ground upon which a single battle has been fought. So he's talking about how, people use military strategy based on other battles, obviously, to decide where to have battles. That battles are, plotted out in advance based on the terrain and other things like that. But World War I and World War II are going to change that, because World War I has the trench warfare, which no one could have predicted. And then World War II is the invention of guerrilla warfare, at least on like a global scale. So it's kind of actually funny to read about this kind of thing. But I mean, while all of that is different, it's still just people dying for no reason. So, as they say, war never changes. What happens next? Robert and his girlfriend have a fight, as usual, apparently, and they make up, and then Robert decides to go to Bruges to see her. I'd love to go to Bruges one day. Apparently, it's a beautiful city. Anyway, Marcel, seeing that his dinner plans with the Guermantes are shot down, he tries to make Robert get him an invite to their house, because apparently Elstier has a painting there that he wants to see. He's being sneaky, and Robert says, sure, man, and then just doesn't do it. He talks about the telephone for a while, I guess because to him it's like a huge deal and like totally different, which makes sense. I mean, it was like the train, like it changed everything. He's a bit of a Luddite, though. He talks to his grandma and he's like, she sounds different and blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, oh, I miss her so much now, so I'm going to go see her. And he walks in on her kind of unawares, like she's not aware that he's entered the room. And he's sad to see how old she looks, and her mortality depresses him. Grandma's old. Grandma will die one day, Marcel. I'm sorry. That's life. But Marcel just like it hits him, I guess, and he's distraught. I mean, he is a young teenager. I don't know why I make fun of him so much, but he's, I guess because he's kind of whiny. Anyway, then he stalks the Duchess again, because that's what you do. And then he has some meditations on dreams and sleeping and everything. And that's when I fell asleep, and that's the end. It was actually quite a busy 100 pages. It's not just him describing furniture this time. Some stuff actually happened. So I'm going to talk about something that permeates, I think, this entire volume from what I've heard, and was mentioned before, but I was like, okay, I didn't really get into it. But now it seems to be a bit more important to the story. So what I'm going to talk about is the Dreyfus Case. So I don't know a lot about French history. I mean, I obviously know about Marie Antoinette, and I know about Versailles and blah, blah, blah. But, and the The French Revolution. That's what it's called. Forgive me. It's Friday morning and I'm very tired. My toddler is cutting a tooth and she seems to want to cut it in the middle of the night, all night. So I am surviving on coffee. The French Revolution, that's kind of the extent of what I know about French history, other than World War I and World War II, where really they just kind of got taken over and the Resistance. So my main focus in school was on Britain pre-1914, but this case, the Dreyfus case, is about, so in forgive me if I do this wrong, like I always do. In 1894, this French army captain named Alfred Dreyfus was accused of handing secret documents to the Imperial German military. So after this closed trial, he was found guilty of treason and sentenced to life imprisonment. His family, and especially his brother, believed that he was innocent and they worked to prove it. In March 1896, so a couple of years later, the real traitor was found to be this Major Ferdinand Valstin Esterhazy. Of course, with a name like that. The general staff, however, refused to reconsider its judgment, and Esterhazy was acquitted of treason. So due to this miscarriage of justice, it was talked about in the newspapers, all these people started discussing it all the time. France became increasingly divided over the case. There was anti-Semitic riots because Dreyfus was Jewish, and that's a big part of this, is the fact that he was discriminated against because of his race and religion. And these riots happened in more than 20 French cities, and there was several deaths related to this whole thing. The army, though, was feeling, embarrassed, I guess, by the whole thing and tried to quash the case when they brought it up for retrial. But the initial conviction was annulled by the Supreme Court, and then Dreyfus also accepted a presidential pardon. So that's good. In 1906, he was officially pardoned by the Supreme Court with no chance of appeal. But the thing is, that doesn't seem like that interesting of a case, really. Like, dude gets discriminated against, but they figure out that it's wrong. Okay, that sucks for him. I mean, I'm sure a prison sentence in, pre-1900 France is not an easy thing. I mean, no prison sentence is easy. This case really had large social implications. People were really divided in opinion on whether he was innocent or not, especially like this is before the Supreme Court laid down their judgment. Can you imagine if they had Twitter back then? Like, it would have caused a civil war like some other places that we know. So the case actually led to a renewal of kind of nationalism in the military, tied to pre-World War I, military complexes as well. I'm assuming, all the other countries were also having a resurgence in military interest, I guess you could say. The Dreyfus Affair also re-sparked some more anti-Semitism, unfortunately. I mean, that seems to be the case in a lot of history, is that it tends to be a scapegoat scenario, and it's terrible. During this whole Dreyfus Affair, as they call it, it was the first kind of use of the term intellectual. So that's kind of interesting. One of the only non-disturbing things about this entire case. Because a lot of intellectuals, I guess, were on Dreyfus's defense, and it just became kind of I'm assuming it became an insult in some circles, and it became a mark of honor in others. Sorry if that wasn't super interesting to you as it is to me. I love pre-World War I Europe, World War I Europe, if you haven't guessed. There's this great book called The Sleepwalkers by Christopher Clark. I haven't read it in full. I've read it in bits and pieces because it's on my list, but it's so big. It's a beast, and it's not like World War I is going anywhere, so I just have to find a time when I want to devote a couple weeks to reading about this. So that's kind of the gist of the Dreyfus case. I hope that makes some sense to you as to why I'm pretty sure this is going to come up more and more in this book, at least, a couple times. So I figured I would explain it now, in case people are like, you're missing a major part of the story. All of you, like 2 people that have watched this. So, thank you though for watching my video. I hope you like them. There's another moment that I liked. So he talks about walking around at night and enjoying the town of Dancière. This life led by the inhabitants of the unknown world must, it seemed to me, be a thing of wonder, and often the lighted windows of some dwelling kept me standing for a long while motionless in the dark, of laying before my eyes the actual mysterious scenes of an existence into which I might not penetrate. I totally get it. I love walking at night and catching a glimpse of what people are doing in their houses and what their houses look like. I mean, I'm peeking in their windows, obviously, but when I'm walking my dog at night, and it's like, oh, cool, what are they doing in there? It's fascinating to me. It's I don't want to see people doing weird stuff. I just am curious. I'm what do people do in their houses? when they're just chilling. So Marcel and I share this, I guess. We share this. I don't stalk people, but you know, I can appreciate a wondering into what people are doing in their houses at night. Marcel just takes it too far. There's a couple quotes that I liked as well. Okay, so talking about dreams, he says, some of them, clear and harmonious while we slept, already so distorted that, having failed to recognize them, we can like them to relics so seriously damaged, so nearly crumbling into the dust, that the most skillful restorer cannot give them back a shape or make anything of them. I mean, we all know how dreams work. You have a sweet dream, you wake up, and you're like, can't remember anything, thanks. So I thought that was a kind of a neat way of explaining it. And he says, my mother, torn between her love for my father and her hope that I might turn out to have brains, preserved an impartiality which she expressed by silence. I thought that was kind of funny. And then he also says, making himself willy-nilly the fugal man of their laughter. I was like, what? What is that? I can understand most words, but I don't know what fugal man meant. So I was like, I'll look it up. Let's see what happens. Thank you, Google. A fugalman is a soldier who is selected to act as a guide and posted generally on the flanks with the duty of directing a march. Okay, that makes sense. So Robert jumps in at random to direct his friends to laugh at Marcel's jokes. What a guy, Robert. You know, I like him more and more. Maybe in my past life, I was his mistress. I was the flighty, crazy actress. That's fine. I don't mind. Because my husband's name now is Robert. St. Lou better not turn out to be a prick, because I swear to God, like, he's clearly my book boyfriend. I need more coffee.